Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. In this episode, I want to talk about the colony drop, more specifically, I guess, how it is in Universal Century, but actually talk about like real-world implications. I'm going to compare to asteroids or other impacts that have occurred, but also speak upon like proposed like size and dimensions of what a space colony would be. And so most of you may be familiar with like the opening to the original Gundam, where it kind of shows, as they're doing the narration of what's happening in Universal Century, we see a colony which is like an O'Neill cylinder, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I've actually done a previous video on it, but it kind of showing it entered the atmosphere. Here's actually where it's showing that it's about to crash down, you know, and then the impact it causes, which is interesting. Fun fact, I had learned that the location of its landing being Sydney wasn't something that was developed until like I think 0080 or Stardust Memory. Yeah, in fact, let me read that. Though Sydney's destruction is considered indisputably canon, it was not until Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 Stardust Memory that it was first established as a city destroyed in the colony drop of the first series. This in itself is reflected in War in the Pocket, where Bernie claims he is from Sydney to a Federation soldier, as opposed to the soldier realizing Bernie was lying due to Sydney no longer existing. He caught on to Bernie when the latter mistakenly claimed it was winter there now. In reality, December is one of Australia's summer months. But what I want to get to here is the fact that I don't think the time of year, the weather would matter after a colony drop. Even in Double Zeta, there's a colony drop with some aftermath. Now, I would show it in animation, but this video could then get blocked, but we could see where it's hitting and then causing a bunch of destruction. People nearby in their mobile suits getting wiped out. Okay, so someone's putting together thanks to AI and some research. So let's talk about what would happen if an asteroid hits the Earth. Small asteroid, 10 to 20 meters. They generally explode in the atmosphere, creating airbursts like the Chelyabinsk meteor in 2013, which shattered windows and injured about 1,500 people. I'll jump to large asteroids about a kilometer and above. These can create impact craters tens of kilometers wide, sending shockwaves through Earth's crust. Tsunamis, wildfires, and seismic activity would occur, along with the release of massive amounts of dust and aerosols into the atmosphere, even activating volcanoes, which would be side effects not directly related to the impact of the asteroid, but what are the effects later that can cause even more devastation. And so for some long-term climate effects and potential for human adaptation, survivors may need to adapt to a colder climate with lower sunlight. Societies might focus on developing indoor agriculture or other technologies to survive. Potential resilience, depending on the scale of the impact, advanced societies might have a better chance of adapting due to their technology and resource management capabilities. But my thought has to do with those that are familiar with surviving in nature already. Maybe those that don't rely on technology would have a better time adapting. That's why I think the concept of the cavemen exists. We just assume that people then just lived in caves back in the past, but I think this was due to surviving from floods, earthquakes, whatever, in caves. And so I found this video on YouTube. This is on the Science Channel. Experience the disaster that wiped out the dinosaurs. And why do I want to show this? And I don't know if I can actually play it. It might, you know, whatever. But you can kind of see where it's showing that there is a shock wave that would actually go through the Earth and again cause effects. But what is the size of a colony and what is the size of an asteroid? So when it comes to colony metrics, in Mobile Suit Gundam, the O'Neill cylinder style space colonies in Universal Century Timeline are enormous structures, both in size and weight. The dimensions of a typical cylindrical space colony, often called an Island 3 type colony, are as follows. Size, approximately 35 to 40 kilometers, which is about 21 to 25 miles, and the diameter is 6.5 kilometers, about 4 miles. And when it comes to weight, estimates vary depending on the materials, but each colony would weigh about 4 to 5 billion metric tons. This includes the outer shell, interior landscape, infrastructure, and atmospheric components. And the colonies are typically built from materials mined from asteroids and the moon, utilizing steel, aluminum, and glass. Solar mirrors reflect sunlight through the windows, providing day and night cycle similar to Earth. But just kind of getting an understanding of the composition, it's mostly what's found in asteroids anyway. Okay, so the asteroid that potentially knocked out the dinosaurs, that would be about 66 million years ago. So, you know, the environment was different, but still. The diameter, 10 to 15 kilometers, is 6 to 9 miles, smaller than the space colony. This impactor struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, creating the Chicxulub. Again, if it's not a Gundam word, it's just whatever word that exists I have trouble with, which is about 150 kilometers, 93 miles wide, and 20 kilometers, 12 miles deep. So think of how large of an area crater that caused, but that is a smaller size, that asteroid, than a colony. Okay, so here's the effects and the impact. The asteroid size and high speed, likely around 20 kilometers per second or 45,000 miles per hour, resulted in an energy release equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs. This caused immediate devastation at ground zero, followed by massive wildfires, tsunamis, and shockwaves that spread globally. The impact threw vast amounts of dust, sulfur, and debris debris into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight and causing a nuclear winter effect. This led to a rapid and dramatic drop in global temperatures, drastically altering the climate and leading to the extinction of about 75% of Earth species, including the non-avian dinosaurs. So think about it would be cold. At least for a long period of time, it would be cold. And if Bernie is saying it's cold in Australia, well, then he would be right. And I guess here's a dust cloud that would just go shooting off, a debris dust cloud across the Earth. This is just from the dinosaur asteroid. You know, I find this fascinating because it wasn't too long, or maybe around the same time, that I got into Gundam understanding. I love, you know, how it starts off, the idea, the devastation of a colony being dropped onto Earth. You know, you kind of think to Star Wars and the Death Star, a giant, you know, planet that was created by some bad guys that can shoot lasers. I mean, that's pretty cool. But dropping a colony, it's pretty sad, scary, but also seems in line with some future use of technology as a weapon. But also, you know, watching Joe Rogan, you know, Graham Hancock is on there sometimes, or Randall Carlson talking about geology, when they talk about, you know, the effects that the asteroid had that killed off the dinosaurs. And there were also similar asteroids that have hit the Earth even more recently. You know, a lot of our textbooks and what they talk about in academia says, you know, human civilization started about 6,000 years ago. But considering how long Homo sapiens have been around, even before that, Neanderthals and Denisovans, with technology, they used tools, they made art, especially at the time, to sit around and make art, make flutes. Neanderthals also made musical instruments. So you got to think, okay, there's a degree of technology, civilization that would have existed, but then why don't we have many remnants of it? And I think it's because this devastation that occurs. Like that Younger Dryas proposed theory of, you know, about 11,500 years ago, an asteroid hitting, causing a crater. I think the crater's up in Greenland, I believe. There's a layer of this, black diamond or something like that, that's almost global, kind of showing the impact of where some of that debris would have landed. And looking this up, the comet thought to have caused the Younger Dryas cooling event is estimated to have been 62,000 miles, 100 kilometers wide. This is much larger than the Tunguska object, which was likely only 130 feet, 40 meters wide. That was the one that hit up in Siberia, but bursted in the air, flattened all the trees. But that is bigger than a colony. So you think of, or a space colony, so you think of what killed the dinosaurs versus the proposed asteroid that hit 11,000 years ago, and then civilization emerging 6,000 years ago. Let's relate this back to Gundam. If indeed a colony at the dimensions that this was at hit the Earth, and again, it did break apart, but it still caused that big of an impact, would probably cause a lot more devastation than I think we see. But I also, you know, think about, you know, U.C. Gundam, especially the early years, and even actually getting into later years, we don't see much of Earth. And when we do, some of it does almost seem almost like a wasteland in a way. There's certain areas maybe when we see cities that seem like they're fine, you know, Hong Kong and even Davao, which from Hathaway, and, you know, that makes me think that I think there would probably be a little more destruction than what we see. It could be technology at that time maybe allowed humans to bounce back a little quicker, but I do think there would be much more devastation going on, especially during the 1-year war on Earth, sometimes where we see the White Base or other Federation or Xeon. Usually it's like in a desert landscape or something, and it could really be that Earth is in a much worse shape than we're shown. But we even get to something like as far as Victory Gundam on Earth, and it seemed like a wasteland. There's you know, the Zanskar Empire that's beheading people, which I think is pretty neat. It's kind of a primitive form of, I guess, their governing style. But we see these people that are like living in the woods, and there's just pieces of technology that they're kind of scrapping together. So I guess the point here is then, how accurate is the colony drop in Gundam? It happens multiple times, and I want to say it seems like it would be worse than it is, but we also don't get a good look at Earth everywhere. And anytime we do, like, yeah, even when Amuro went to go visit his mom, it's not like everything looks super high tech and glamorous, right? It seemed like people were kind of living in less technical conditions, but technology at that time could have just allowed, again, humankind to kind of bounce back faster on Earth. You know, I was just looking it up, and there's no official measurement estimate of axis. I was curious about that. Anyway, at the end of the day, I do think that they really still show off the devastation and how horrible a colony drop would be on Earth in U.C. Gundam. It seems like it could have been much worse. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any other parts in U.C. Gundam that kind of depict the state of Earth, maybe outside of the main cities or outside of highly technologically advanced areas, because I do think it would have caused worldwide devastation that would probably have allowed the Principality of Xeon to actually gain a foothold. Earth would be a wasteland. They would be relying on the space colonies. And actually, would that even affect the space colonies because they can't rely on resources from Earth anymore? I don't know. I find all that stuff very interesting, not only as it relates to Gundam, but as us humans on Earth. We're just a ball that's sitting there that at any time giant asteroids could just hit us and cause us to restart. I mean, ancient myths talk about a world in devastation, about humans coming out from under the ground, or the story of Noah's Ark, where there's a giant flood, so he had to try to save as many animals or people, whatever he could. Like, there's so many stories and all these different myths about the same thing. So anyway, I thought that was very interesting. And again, let me know what you think. Thanks to all the supporters that make this possible. If that's something you're interested in, check the links in the description and check out our Discord. That's a cool place to chill. We have a lot of fun there, sharing pics and stuff, work in progress of Gunpla. But until next time, be cool.